right, let's jump right in. Today we're taking a deep dive into masculine dominion, balancing strength and compassion.
Yeah, this one really gets into what it means to be a man today. You know, all the expectations and stuff.
And it doesn't shy away from controversy either, like the
No.
whole traditional roles thing.
Definitely gets you thinking. Some really interesting points about how modern culture plays into all that, even the spiritual side of relationships.
One thing that really hit me was that scorpion and frog analogy. You know how it talks about men being expected to be strong, but then get punished for showing vulnerability?
Right, it's like a trap almost. Society tells us to be tough, but the moment you show a crack, it's like you're
Exactly. It's like they set us up for failure.
Yeah.
And the book uses this example of Jake, this successful guy battling anxiety and depression secretly, because he never let his emotions out.
And then it ties that into cultural Marxism, this idea that there's a movement to redefine traditional values. The book's pretty upfront about how that impacts masculinity.
Society trying to erase those positive traits almost, like the drive to lead, to protect. And it uses all these historical examples, tribal chiefs, biblical figures.
But here's the thing, even in the business world today, those qualities are still rewarded. Decisiveness, risk-taking. The book calls it masculine dominion, but stresses it's not about being a tyrant. It's strength with compassion.
So it's not about throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
But you can still have those traditional values, but adapt them to today's world.
Exact. The book pushes back on that whole toxic masculinity label, saying it lumps everything together. You know, throws the good out with the bad.
It's more nuanced than that.
Right. Instead, it's like, look at strength and vulnerability. What do they really mean? And how can they work together to create a healthy masculinity?
There's a great story in there about the author meeting a men's rights activist.
Oh, yeah. It challenges some stereotypes. Shows that these guys are often thoughtful, you know, genuinely concerned about men's well-being.
Okay, so given all this pressure, what does the book suggest we do? Is there advice on how to build resilience?
Oh, absolutely. It talks about having a strong sense of self, knowing your values, even finding strength in faith.
Interesting.
Yeah, like the samurai warriors and the Bushido code. It wasn't just physical strength. You know, it was mental, spiritual, too.
Wow.
Having a clear set of values helped them face anything, even death.
Wow, that's powerful. Okay, and then the book gets into gender roles, right? This idea of a divine order.
It says that historical division of roles between men and women, it wasn't random, it was for harmony, you know?
That's definitely a controversial one. And it even talks about motherhood as this sacred thing, going beyond just personal choice.
Definitely makes you think.
All right, so shifting gears a bit. The book also talks about physical fitness. Makes sense, right? Men are expected to be strong.
Right, and it goes into how that impacts everything. Self-esteem, mental health.
There's a story in there about Tom, right? Who totally turned his life around through fitness.
Yeah, went from feeling down to feeling empowered. Really showcases that transformative power.
It's like fitness builds a foundation for everything else.
Definitely. And then there's this beautiful chapter on fatherhood. You know how it's not just physical, it's spiritual too.
I loved that part, that analogy of God as the father.
So powerful. Right. Creation, guidance, compassion, all part of being a dad.
Yeah, and it talks about balance too, being responsible but also empathetic, setting expectations but being understanding.
Exactly. And I think that's a good place to pause for now. We've covered a lot of ground already.
That's just the beginning.
Right. There's so much more to unpack in masculine dominion.
We'll dive back in soon with the next part of our deep dive.
Can't wait. You know what really stuck with me from last time? How the book keeps challenging those narratives about masculine.
Oh yeah, it's like we're bombarded with all these messages about what a man should be. And they're not always good.
Like it's trying to strip away our traditional values and strengths.
And the book dives deep into that cultural Marxism thing.
Right.
How it impacts how we view masculinity, even saying it demonizes traits that were once considered virtue.
What's interesting is how it takes on the term toxic masculinity. It argues that while it's well-intentioned, it's kind of harmful too, because it paints with such a broad brush.
It's like saying any expression of traditional masculinity is toxic.
Exactly. It creates this atmosphere of fear, you know? Men are afraid to express themselves authentically.
Yeah, because they might get labeled as toxic or problematic.
Right. And that's where the book really makes you think critically, you know? Question those narratives.
Look beyond the surface.
Yeah, like maybe those traditional traits aren't actually bad.
It's not about glorifying aggression or anything. It's just recognizing that strength, resilience, responsibility, those are good qualities.
And they shouldn't be demonized just because they're associated with traditional masculinity.
The book reminds us those traits have helped men throughout history build civilizations, protect families,
Create a better world.
and not just history, even today. Think about firefighters, police officers, soldiers.
You need those qualities. Courage, willingness to put yourself in harm's way.
What I liked about the book was its balanced approach. It acknowledges the complexity of it all.
Right. It doesn't pretend there are easy answers.
It's not about going back to the past or rejecting everything modern.
It's about finding that middle ground. Balance strength with compassion.
And I think this part about men connecting with their natural instincts, that's a good example of that.
Oh, yeah, totally. In today's world, It's easy to lose touch with those primal instincts.
It's like we're so disconnected from nature.
The book suggests things like hiking, camping, fishing, anything that gets you outdoors, away from distractions.
Hitting the reset button almost.
Yeah, connecting with who we are at our core.
And there's a spiritual side to that too.
Right. Nature can offer insights into our own lives, our purpose.
It's not just fresh air and exercise. It's deeper than that.
The book uses this great analogy of the oak tree, strong but also bends with the wind.
I love that.
True strength isn't about being rigid. It's about flexibility, adaptability.
Yeah.
And we can learn that from nature.
Nature's like a mirror, reflecting back what we need to cultivate in ourselves.
Exactly. And then it talks about how nature can teach us about leadership, resilience, even spirituality.
Those rites of passage.
Exactly. Those challenges that shape us into men, even in the modern world. Those experiences are valuable.
They give us a sense of purpose, test our limits, teach us about responsibility, leadership, community.
It's like forging a bond between men.
A shared understanding of what it means to face adversity.
And that connection to nature, to our instinct.
Yeah.
It's especially important today with all these conflicting messages about masculinity.
Like nature is a grounding force, a reminder of who we are.
Regardless of societal expectations.
It helps us cut through the noise.
Get back to basics.
You know what's interesting? How the book ties all this back to relationships.
Oh yeah, big time. It talks a lot about the spiritual significance of relationships, especially between men and women.
What's its perspective on that?
It takes a pretty traditional stance, emphasizing complementary roles.
So not about one gender being superior.
Not at all. It stresses mutual respect, understanding, recognizing that we bring different things to the table.
It's that yin and yang thing,
Right.
right? Two halves making a whole.
Exactly. And it explores how those different energies create harmony, not just in romantic relationships, but in society as a whole.
Does the book give any practical advice on relationships?
Oh, yeah. It talks about authenticity, open communication, willingness to be vulnerable.
And healing from past hurts, approaching relationships with respect,
Exactly. It's not just about finding someone who completes you, it's about growing together.
becoming better versions of yourselves.
Then it ties that back to masculinity, saying
Oh.
that men who are secure in their identity, emotionally intelligent, comfortable with vulnerability.
You make better partners.
Right. True strength isn't dominance or control. It's opening yourself up, connecting on a deeper level.
And then there's the fatherhood part.
Oh, yeah. It says being a father isn't just about providing or setting rules. It's about being a spiritual guide.
Role model,
Yeah.
sorts of unconditional love.
Exactly. A more holistic approach to fatherhood, embracing the traditional role, but also emphasizing emotional connection, empathy, spiritual guidance.
And connecting it back to masculine dominion.
Right. Being a good father is the ultimate expression of that. Using your strength, wisdom, compassion to guide the next generation.
What a beautiful way to put it. It's not about power, it's about love, leaving a legacy.
And it challenges men to step up, be that kind of father, raise strong, compassionate, responsible children.
Okay, so we've talked about the challenges and community, but what other obstacles do men face today?
The book goes into the pressures of modern life,
Yeah.
all the demands on our time and energy.
And pulled in a million directions.
And it talks about isolation, that feeling of loneliness, even though we're more connected than ever.
It's like we're losing those traditional support systems.
Yeah, the breakdown of community, the rise of technology leading to superficial connection.
Thousands of friends online, but still feeling alone.
And it doesn't shy away from the mental health impact, anxiety, depression, hopelessness.
So what's the solution? How do we combat that?
The book encourages us to connect on a deeper level, build communities based on shared values, have meaningful conversations.
Support each other through tough times,
Find your tribe, those people who get you.
who you can be yourself around.
Those communities provide strength, guidance, accountability,
It's about men helping men.
becoming the best versions of themselves.
It's like a revival of brotherhood.
Going back to those ancient bonds,
We're stronger together.
the book challenges us to build those connections, reach out, create communities where we can be vulnerable, supportive, accountable.
It's inspiring to think about the positive changes that could come from that.
Tapping into that collective strength, wisdom, compassion.
Okay, so challenges community. Where do we go from here? What's the next step in this journey?
The book ends on a hopeful note. It says, despite the challenges, there's a growing movement of men waking up to their potential.
That's encouraging.
Men seeking balance, strength with compassion, committed to building a better world.
Like we're at a turning point, a new paradigm of masculinity.
And the book challenges us to be part of that movement. Be the change.
Step up, lead with strength and compassion.
Create a future where men thrive.
I think a lot of men are ready for a new definition of masculinity,
One that honors our strengths,
but also embraces our vulnerability.
seeing men not as dominators, but as partners, protectors, guides.
And the book gives us a framework for that.
Reclaiming those positive aspects, integrating them with empathy, compassion.
Using them to build a better world. As we've been talking about all these ideas from masculine dominion, one thing that keeps coming back to me is this idea of balancing strength and compassion. It's like a thread that runs through the whole book.
Oh yeah, definitely a core theme. And it's something a lot of men struggle with, On one hand, be strong and stoic. Don't show your emotions. But then also be compassionate, understanding, empathetic.
It's like we're caught between two extremes.
Yeah, totally. And the book suggests finding that middle ground, embracing both strength and compassion.
Not either.
Right? It's about integrating those qualities so they work together, create a more balanced way of being.
Okay, so how do we actually do that? Find that balance.
Well, the book gives some practical advice. One thing is self-awareness. Really understanding our own emotions, strengths.
Like know thyself.
Right, exactly. That still applies today. And once you understand yourself better, then you can start developing emotional intelligence.
Which is?
Basically learning to understand and manage your emotion and being able to empathize with others.
Emotional intelligence. It's a bit of a buzzword these days, but the book makes a good case for why it's important.
Right. It's not just some soft skill. It's crucial for navigating life, relationships, leadership.
It's a part of masculinity that we don't talk about enough.
And the good news is you can cultivate it. It takes practice, patience, and a willingness to be vulnerable.
That vulnerability thing, that's a tough one for a lot of guys.
Oh, yeah. We're told to hide our emotions, don't show weakness.
It's ingrained in us.
But the book flips that script. It says vulnerability is a sign of strength, not weakness.
Interesting. How so?
It takes courage to be vulnerable, to open yourself up to the possibility of getting hurt.
I never thought of it that way.
It takes strength to admit you're wrong. Ask for help. Show your true feelings.
So it's not about being stoic all the time.
Right. It's about finding that balance. Express yourself authentically, but also be mindful of how your emotions impact others.
Which goes back to emotional intelligence.
Exactly. Knowing when to express yourself and when to hold back.
This has been an incredible journey through masculine dominion. We've covered so much.
Yeah, so much good stuff.
But before we wrap up, what does the book say about where we go from here?
It ends on a hopeful note, saying that despite the challenges, there's a growing movement of men waking up to their potential.
That's good to hear.
Men who want to balance strength with compassion and who want to build a better world.
It's like we're at a crossroads. We can choose a different path.
A more balanced, fulfilling way of being.
And that path is open to all of us.
It's not about fitting into a mold. It's about embracing our full humanity, strength, and vulnerability.
Using them to create a more compassionate world.
Exactly.
If our listeners want to explore these ideas further, where can they find Masculine Dominion?
It's available on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books.
This deep dive has been amazing. I hope it encourages our listeners to check out the book.
It's been a pleasure discussing this with you. I think Masculine Dominion offers a really valuable roadmap for men today.
Absolutely. And until next time, remember, true strength lies in embracing both our power and our compassion. Thanks for joining us.